Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel and Adam for another episode of Horror Express. And tonight we're talking about the classic film Creature from the Black Lagoon. This is a 1954 movie produced by William Allen and directed by Jack Arnold. It's a one of the classic Universal monsters, and I think it was originally done in 3D, but I don't think any of us have ever seen it in 3D, and I think most people have seen it in 2D, in fact. And the breakdown of the movie, right off of the Rotten Tomatoes page, is remnants of a mysterious animal have come to light in a remote jungle, and a group of scientists intend to determine if the find is an anomaly or evidence of an undiscovered beast. To accomplish this goal, the scientists must brave the perilous pieces of land South America has to offer, but the terrain is nothing compared to the danger posed by an otherworldly being that endangers their work and their lives. And I should mention, which you probably caught on to just from my reading of that this is a late night movie review, movie discussion. And so there will be slurred speech, there will be meandering, and all kinds of, aimless wandering throughout the discussion. So, again, this is obviously a classic movie. It's a black and white film. What was everybody's background with this movie? Because, this is one that either people maybe have seen before, or maybe this was your first time. I don't know.
I thought I had seen this movie before, but when I was watching it, I realized I never had. I used to read a lot of monster movie books when I was in elementary school. Yeah. So maybe I think, I read those Universal ones where I go through the whole history of the movies and stuff. So it's like, I think I just read so many of those that I thought I had this movie in my head, but I didn't. So,
those books used to be a big thing, and I've been hankering for them now, especially since we're doing the podcast, and I can't find them. Like, I've been looking all over trying to find them, because there were some really good quality, history of horror movie monster books that were specific to this era and this style of film.
Yeah.
And I haven't
all school libraries I moved a lot. It's like every school library, those books would be there back in the 80s and the late 70s.
And that can mislead you. You can read about it and think you saw it. That has certainly happened to me as well. Joel,
when I was too young, I was too afraid to watch horror movies. So just read about them all the time and imagine them.
And Joel, was this your first time seeing it, or was this your...
Yeah, I had no illusion that I'd ever seen it before, but I knew what was going to happen in it. The movie's PR guy must have been amazing, because everyone knows every plot beat of this movie without ever having seen it.
Well, I think it's pretty. I think there's a lot. When I was my experience with it was I watched it with my uncle a number of times as a kid, but I pretty much forgot most of the plot because I was young. But my uncle was really, really into this movie, and he used to quote it, and it was just one of those, do the "I'm the creature from the Black Lagoon" kind of a thing. And I think there was a lot of people repeating phrases and plot points, and that's maybe how it's worked its way into, to the point that you knew the movie without even seeing it. Or maybe Family Guy had something to do with it. I don't know if they've, shows like that might have, helped it to live on.
And movies like The Shape of Water are kind of like a legacy movie to that too. So.
Well, that was supposed to be a remake of it, but the studios didn't buy it, so he ended up just making his own version of it, essentially.
Very good.
So what do you guys think of this movie now that you've both seen it? Does it live up to the legendary status that it has, or was it like, this is a hokey movie from the 50s?
Well, I actually have to kind of review it twice, because I watched it with my girlfriend to get her impression too. She thought it was really hokey and did not enjoy it very much. I actually quite enjoyed it. I liked the monster a lot. I didn't find the cast particularly charming, except for the boat captain. That guy was awesome.
The guy who kept talking in the third person, right?
Yeah, and he pulled his knife on the guy that was in charge of the expedition.
That was That was the best scene in the movie because I was like, wow, that's like a real badass move for the 1950s. Like that felt,
Oh, yeah.
do you know what I mean? It felt a little bit like, whoa, things are really escalating rapidly here.
Yeah, it was really edgy and great. So that was a cool scene. But I like how much they built up the monster. I like that they did a lot of really good, beautiful cinematography. Like I love the underwater shots; those are beautifully woven into the film. I like there was a real boat. I don't know, that's just charming. I liked the cave set quite a bit. I like how tough they made the monster. It was really good. It was a simple movie that was done extremely well, in my opinion. So I quite enjoyed it. I really liked the creature suit too, especially considering it was underwater in most shots, and like it looked really good. There was no like zipper or anything, so it was great.
Yeah, I even like the way its gills would work sometimes.
Yeah.
So because I realized I've only ever seen still shots, never seen the movie. I'm like, oh, cool, his gills.
And he moves his mouth like a fish. He kind of keeps opening and closing his mouth like a fish, and it's a little bit eerie that he does that, you know. So
it does give him a real fish-like quality that I didn't realize.
It's kind of an uncanny valley vibe to it, so that's neat.
Yeah.
Adam, how about you? What was your reaction?
I liked it. I mean, it's not a great movie, but it was I thought it was a nice, tight, solid action movie. My impression actually was that it felt like this was, I don't want to call it low budget because clearly filming underwater has had a lot of budget, but it felt like a smaller scale version of King Kong. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, it did kind of have that.
It had to have been like influenced by it, but at the same time, you talked about how the beats are familiar. It felt like it was very influential in its own right. There's probably like dozens of movies that I think this movie off.
I think the idea came about because there was a Mexican director at some kind of party in Hollywood, and the screenwriter heard him talking about a story about fishmen that lived in the Amazon forest, like these legends. And he took that and then he kind of used Beauty and the Beast as his guide, which is basically pretty similar to King Kong, right? So, but that's I think that's where those like something is very familiar about this story really comes from is the that he was using that template probably, and also the whole classic thing of there's one guy that really wants to like shoot the thing and one guy that wants to preserve it, and that sort of dynamic. So my reaction is, I mean, again, I
felt like a little heavy-handed with the shoot thing because it's like early on in the movie, it's like, wouldn't it be more valuable to capture this and put him on display than to? I mean, you're just like so intent on killing him early on. I was like, why? I don't even understand.
Well, it was all building up
of action.
Well, here's what's interesting. Number one, it builds up to that fist fight, but number two, we can get into this later. But in a way, he's kind of right because when you see what happens. Do you know what I mean? Like, all these people die. They capture him, and then more people just die. So,
that wasn't really his reasoning. Though. I mean, if his reasoning had been, it's dangerous, we need to kill it. But it's like, I want to make money. A rotting corpse.
His reasoning was bad. I'm just saying the course of action he was advocating might have been more sensible. In terms of survivability of the characters, but so I had seen it as a kid, obviously, and. I don't know. I didn't remember that much of it. I remembered key scenes. Like I remembered, what's his name? Mark, the blonde-haired guy. I remember him dying for some reason. I don't know why. That really stood out to me as a memory. And I remembered, the scenes of the creature attacking and things like that. But I didn't really remember the plot line and all of the tension between the characters. And so it was kind of like seeing it for the first time. And I felt like it was. I get Joel. I think that you and your girlfriend both are kind of right. It's a hokey movie. Like it's a hokey 1950s movie. There's no getting around that the movie is aged a certain way. But as rubber monster suit movies go, this is one of the best rubber monster suit movies, just in terms of the look and in terms of how they pull it off. And I think also even like the heavy-handed stuff between the characters really keeps you engaged with it, because otherwise you just be sitting there waiting for the creature to attack somebody, essentially. So having this sort of they're both these men of science, but one guy wants to shoot the thing and put it on display, and the other guy wants to preserve it and even kind of feel sympathetic towards it. I don't know. I think gave it a more interesting character, and I also thought it was interesting that the overall feel of the movie felt very sympathetic towards the creature in general. It didn't seem like like even the way that the creature attacks initially seems to be more of a misunderstanding between the creature and the people in the tents, where they are afraid, so they attack it, and it attacks them. I feel like if you rewound that tape and they didn't attack, maybe that would have played out differently. So it just doesn't seem like a purely malicious creature. It seems like it's initially defending itself. It's enamored with this woman, and it also is maybe a little bit vengeful after they start attacking it, and especially after it gets shot with the arrow.
Well, and they also tear off like a specimen, like an arm of a buried one of them. Like it's clearly buried on land. Like we don't know what weird rites these things do to their dead. Like maybe that's really important. It's like a curse of the mummy thing.
No, that's true. And also, even if it's not, it would be kind of like if there was like a really ancient, human remain. We might object if aliens came down and
just started tearing off pieces of it.
Yeah.
Get out of my swamp. Get out of my swamp.
But yeah, I thought it was a good movie, and I thought it was again hokey but good. And once you settle in and you accept, because there are these older 1950s movies that don't do this to me, like the House on Haunted Hill is very 1950s in many ways, but it I can't remember if that was a 50s or a 60s movie, because it exists in that black and white period, but it's similar period. But it didn't leap out at me the way this one did, where the music was all perfectly stereotypically 1950s at various points. Some of the conversations were acted in very stereotypical 1950s ways, especially like I had mentioned Mark's thing with the cigarette and the way that he gestures, just that felt very very 1950s.
That was very This Island Earth, like I've seen that before.
And so it's just, I don't know. So there was that, but once you settle into that and you accept it, I think it really works as a movie. And I think it's got kind of a good pace to it. Like Joel was saying, it's sort of slow. The horror sort of slowly builds. My note about it was striptease of terror, where like the monster is slowly revealing itself. Do you know what I mean? And that's that's all you can really do with the rubber suit monster if you want to maximize the fears. Is slowly, unless it's so terrible looking that you just might as well show the goods right away, right? But I feel like the best thing to do is just slowly reveal it and so you get the fin, then you get like little glimpses of it, and then you think that it's going to be more drawn out than it is, but then they actually kind of show you a quick shot of it, in full. But it's a
really quick shot. It was almost a jump scare. I was impressed with that shot.
Yeah, I liked it too, and I liked that it's sort of like, oh, you see it, but you definitely can't process everything you saw, and so then it still works towards building up what is this thing. And like Joel was saying, it's super strong, so it's terrifying. And the way that the humans have an advantage with the guns and the harpoon, but the moment they don't have those, they're at an extreme disadvantage. So it was an interesting sort of balance.
I like that the movie has like this split between like where the monster is in its natural habitat and where the humans are, because you can really tell like when the humans are hunting it, they're out of their depth. Like literally, it drags them deeper down and gives them the bends at one point. And then like when it's on land, like they have it's a little more clumsy, and they're able to get shots off, so their guns work on it. Even in that though, God, it takes a lot of bullets before it dies. Like it is riddled with bullets.
Yeah, there was aside from the bullet, there was just like a tactical reality to this, where you could feel the planning, you could feel the. I don't know. It's just, a lot of action movies kind of fail at that, where it's like stuff's just kind of happening. Whereas this, I don't know, it hung together pretty well.
This felt like the tactics of the movie felt like they were made by Boy Scouts. Do you know what I mean? Like people that like think in terms of knowing how camping works, knowing how how the gear works and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And some movies don't. Some movies, it feels like the guy never understood that stuff that's writing it and just kind of breezes over it. And so
exactly. But because I mean, you can see I don't know, just the way the equipment's deployed and everything in this movie. But I don't even know I'm trying to say.
No, but my only complaint is that sometimes this movie is the stupidest smart people in the world in terms of behavior, because they're just constantly doing really stupid things in order to become suddenly, like, he knows he's going in there to rescue her from a monster, and he goes to hug her when he finds her and like throws the harpoon down on the ground.
That was
like
the
five
stupid part of that movie. That was like the one point I was just like, every other thing in the movie I was like, okay, I could see. I was just no.
Well, the guy who falls asleep I thought was also kind of stupid. Like, you're guarding this thing and you fall, granted it didn't really, that, even though they said that he was being lazy and that's why he got hurt, it really wasn't, because the woman woke him up before anything even happened.
And it's like walk over and turn your back to the creature. Let's look this way. That was you're right. That was actually
there was a lot of that in this movie where the creature is like walking behind someone and they're looking away from it. It's like, you can't hear it. I can hear it.
Yeah.
It's like shuffling and slapping and slurping and gasping, and they're like, "What a nice day it is out today. I should smoke."
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely that. But
I think it was meant to build suspense, but yeah.
Yeah, as far as the schlockiness, I mean, if you're planning to watch this movie, you're kind of on board with it to a degree, I think. You just have to meet this, it's like, I'm going to watch a 50s monster movie. So if that's what you want, this is a good one with the qualifications in place.
50s horror movies have a fun quality. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
This was fun.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying. Like, when my uncle would describe movies like this, it was always like with enthusiasm for the creature, and it's, you know what I mean. There's like it's a different kind of monster than something from like the 80s or 90s or the early 2000s, and from the 70s. But yeah, what did you guys think of the opening to this movie? That was kind of an unusual opening too. Where it like opens up with the book of Genesis basically, and then it shifts to like the whole evolution thing, and I thought that was a really interesting pairing. But I was just curious if like what you thought that decision was about, and just anything related to that.
That felt particularly 50s. Just had that whole 50s document. As someone that went to school in the 70s and 80s, you were still getting a lot of 50s educational material, so it just. That felt very schoolish to me while I was watching it, but I enjoyed it. There's something about that aesthetic.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because I was raised on the same type of stuff in school, and you had these residual like projector movies that you would watch in science class, and they had a certain look, a certain feel, a certain type of narration, and it definitely had that. And it was like, well, we kind of got to get religion in here and God, but we also have to get science in here. And so
and that I think because I mean, this movie really is a science fiction movie as much as anything, which is its horror. So I think it worked from that respect, that they were, by setting it up to feel like an educational documentary at the beginning. It's like, oh, this is real science. I'm going to believe this about the Gill Man. So
No, and they took pains to do that. I mean, some of the exposition was a little bit heavy, right? But they did use the exposition to help build a case for the plausibility of the creature and its place in the ecosystem and in the evolution of species. So again, it was very like, why is this scientist explaining this very basic principle to another scientist? But obviously they're saying it for the audience.
Well, they had the foresight to put an idiot banker in that scene. Like, what is evolution? Dumb it down for you there.
Yeah.
That's true. That is a good point. I
felt very seen by that.
Yeah. But again, the exposition was a little bit heavy. But I did feel like, I don't know, I liked the again, even though they are very I guess I would say stark leading man 1950s characters, I liked them. I thought they did a really good job sort of pitting them against each other and having characters that were still all pretty distinct and memorable from each other. I thought that because again, sometimes in these older movies they don't do, that's one thing I think that some of them don't do very well, which is, well, this guy is just there. He's just there. He doesn't really have any personality.
Every character had a purpose in this movie. There wasn't I weren't wasting your time with that. But yeah, as far as the exposition goes, and it's like once again, if you're watching a '50s monster movie, having some heavy-handed exposition in there, it's like that's kind of what you're there for.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of part of the. I don't want to call it genre, but it really is kind of a genre unto itself,
Yeah.
isn't it? That kind of like
Yeah.
Universal monster 1950s drama thing. Yeah, it's a genre. And like, yeah, you because they do that in all of them. They do that in this one. They do that in War of the Worlds. Really famously, they would just like stop for a minute to look off at something happening off camera while they explained it to the woman. Because I do like that they didn't make the woman dumb.
Yeah,
she was like no, she was a researcher, right? Now she did spend a lot of time in a bikini.
She did stupid things,
yeah,
but like she wasn't scientifically illiterate, I guess is my point. So that was nice. They also my biggest laugh of this movie was the scene after the creature has attacked them and they're trying to capture it and they're all paranoid. And so it's nighttime and it starts at the one corner of the ship and you see like one of the guys with a gun and it pans out a little further. There's another guy sitting there smoking with a gun, a different gun, a bigger gun, and then it pans around and everyone's got a gun. Then it finally goes to the bow of the ship and she's standing there in a bikini, like hands on her hips. Man, I hope that monster doesn't attack. That was amazing.
What I liked about the gunshot too was that everybody was holding the gun a little bit differently, and it kind of said something about their character and about like their state of mind. I don't know. That scene was pretty memorable. But yeah,
it was a good scene, but it was pretty funny.
But she did do one of the big stupid things, which was she went swimming in the lagoon and like swam, like pleasure swimming. Like even if the creature from the Black Lagoon isn't there, you're in like the Amazonian rainforest, and you're, and it's I don't know.
You are knocking on the door of the dreaded Kindiru and just asking it to crawl into your urethra, dude. Get out of that water.
It just seems like you're in unknown territory here. You don't know if they're
well, just with nobody watching too.
Yeah.
It's like if there's at least someone looking. But that was ridiculous. But
yeah, the captain had to come out. It's like by chance, like time to smoke some more. Yeah. Oh no!
And then he almost drops the anchor on her head. Did you see that when he throws the anchor down as she's swimming up to the which I think that was just the actor almost dropped an anchor on her head, because she was literally right there, and it's maybe they were just that just wasn't safety wasn't as big of a concern back then. I don't know. But I know I definitely picked up on that. So did you guys know, by the way, that this was filmed in the same set location as Gilligan's Island?
No way, really?
Yeah. This is the same like.
I've been to the place they've shot this. I haven't. That's my lock screen on my phone here.
Oh, let me see.
That's the creature from the Black Lagoon's cave.
So, now is that?
Oh wait, I got notifications over it.
Is that in the Universal Studio?
No, it's the place in Florida where they shot it. There's these springs. They shot a ton of movies like Bond movies, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and all these movies. It was like this place where they just do underwater shooting.
Well, I think the underwater scenes were done in Florida, but I think some of them were all. I think the island, like the little. Not the island, like the pond, the lake was shot, the lagoon, I think was in California. I think the above water shots might have been in California. I could be wrong. We should,
There's, okay. But it looks like there were 2 locations in Florida for the location shots.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
I think the stuff shot in California was more the inside of the cave and when they were in the cabin of the boat and stuff.
Okay. But yeah, but I thought it was interesting that it was Gilligan's Island basically. Which I didn't know. Huh?
So what was happening on the far side of the island? The professor goes over there with his pipe and he's all like, what's transpiring here?
It'd be funny if like you saw some of the Gilligan Island actors in the background there, but But what did you guys think of the creature design? I know we kind of talked about that, but just in terms of the physical look of the creature.
they knew enough to do some things right, but not enough to not do other things wrong. Like, that's my final review. Like, first of all, it did look like a creature. There was no like weird zipper or anything like that. So, and it was skin tight, whoever was in it, and it had cool ridges, and it looked armored, and it had like kind of notable humanish anatomy, but also divergences that were realistic and well put together. So it was an incredibly well crafted costume. They knew enough to give it a big eye ridge, so when it was kind of like it was tilted down away from the light, it had these dark shadows over its eyeballs, which was very intimidating. They knew enough to give it the gills, like Adam was talking about, it had like working gills. That was really like, that was realistic enough to actually kind of draw me into the movie. Like, holy shit, this thing's really breathing. They knew enough to give it some mannerisms that were somewhere between human and somewhere between fish, like with the little clucking that it did with its mouth. They also gave it a big dumb fish mouth and face, which was not at all scary. And I don't think rounded head was the right direction to go. It makes sense, evolutionarily speaking. It just looked kind of dumb. So it's I would say it is 9/10 really, actually really good movie monster. And then like the rest of it is like kind of goofy. And the goofiness doesn't play to its advantage. So that's my review of the monster.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I don't have that in depth a review, but
Gil's good. Moving on.
Yeah, Gil's good. I like the dumbness of it. I mean, that's just for me. I agree with you. It looks kind of, there's something stupid about its face, but it's just that lack of human intelligence in the face. Just it worked for me in some respect. I mean.
Yeah, I thought
there was enough going on with the eyes that kind of helped with that.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like once you started to see its mouth open and close like a guppy, that's kind of when the whole face really starts to work for me. Is that this is like a fish? Do you know what I mean? That's when that sort of lands. I think it's a classic creature. I mean, it definitely is like among the universal monsters. It's like up there with the Wolfman and all that stuff and Frankenstein. So, I think that it's definitely one of the winners. And it's well, no, because I mean there are monsters that don't look so great. And there's like and and this is one that's always, it just has like a cool aesthetic on top of being a good monster. Do you know what I mean? It's just something where it's like, oh, there's like a striking, there's like a pleasing pattern to the creature. Do you know what I mean? Just from like the standpoint of art, not even from a standpoint of, is this like a believable monster or whatever. It just has like a Metropolis type thing. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, that's like very aesthetically pleasing.
I'll definitely grant that.
Yeah, it's almost tough to judge to an extent just because it is such an iconic monster. It's like, it is just one of those monsters I've been seeing all my life. So it's there's a familiarity with it, which makes it a little harder to judge.
Yeah, it's like trying to judge the Boris Karloff Frankenstein with the weird square head. Like, that is Frankenstein. That's what he looks like in the popular consciousness. Period. Dot. It's not about judging it at this point. It's part of a legend.
No, and it's like when I play Call of Cthulhu or something, and I think about Deep Ones. It's like the way Deep Ones look is shaped by Creature from the Black Lagoon, even though Deep Ones are even older than it. And it's just what's in my head.
No, that's one of the difficulties with movies like this, especially when they predate your memory, is that it's like it's just all imprinted on you already, and so it's just like that whole culture. Like this one, I remember the first time I saw the Creature from the Black Lagoon, so I still feel like I have a slightly more objective like opinion of it than I do of Frankenstein, where I don't remember the first time I saw Frankenstein, but I feel like I just always knew the Frankenstein monster look. It was I probably saw it on a Halloween rack before I even saw the movie. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing. Whereas the Creature from Black Lagoon, I remember becoming aware of it, and seeing it on the screen. So, and I remember it had like a really powerful effect the first time I saw it as a kid. It definitely didn't have that effect this time. Like it wasn't, when you're 8 and you see something like that, it's different than when you're, in your 40s. But so, but I still think it's I don't know, it's a clever design, and I don't know. In terms of the horror movies like this, are oftentimes they're not quite as scary as movies from other decades. They're kind of doing something else. Do you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
like, if they are scary, it's because there's like some kind of human drama in them, like the Wolfman. Do you know what I mean? That's mostly scary because of the human drama around it, I feel. And
yeah, it's like psychologically scary.
Yeah, it's like
That's one of the reasons that Frankenstein was so scary. Like even the Universal Frankenstein, like had a real like descent into madness going on with it. So there's something to appreciate in that was scary.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I think, but I don't know, this one you kind of have to judge it as a, as a 50s horror movie. It's not. I don't know. It's not. It's just. Which is fine. I mean, again, like some of these movies you watch them for the hokey charm of it as well. So, and the thing is,
hokiness. I don't even know about if I would call this like super hokey. Like honestly, as much as I just lambasted the classic design, which I don't think that was too bad, but like I actually have to kind of give it to this movie in terms of hokiness. I didn't really think it was that hokey. Like there was a couple of things where I was like groaning, but like. That's more like me groaning at the 1950s culture, a lot less groaning at the movie's context.
Fair.
Like everybody with a woman a gun is such a blind spot to 50s culture. They didn't even think about it. Like, of course, the woman wouldn't have a gun. On her shooting bullets, she'd probably shoot her purse. Like, that's not a critique of the movie.
I think once you're immersed in the movie, it is legitimately building a sense of dread. Do you know what I mean? I think like once you're immersed in it, it's not like this like claws on your heart type of terror that some more modern movies try to achieve. It's more of a just a gentle building of dread, as the situation escalates and as more and more people die and they become more vulnerable. And so
and they die in remarkably grim and grisly ways. Like the guy that gets burned by the lamp, and he isn't even dead. He's just lying there for the rest of the movie, just wrapped in bandages and not able to talk and barely move. Like that's pretty grisly. And then kill that blonde guy, and like his corpse, like dead man, floats up to the top. And that's the top. Oh,
well, and again, that's a scene that was so striking that I remembered it from when I was a kid. Do you know what I mean? And when I saw it this time, I was like, wow, this really is like. For again, maybe we just don't give 50s movies credit because we think of them as so.
I think it's easy to get lost in saying they're hokey without actually giving them the chance to prove themselves. And when you look at a scene like that, there's something pretty heartbreaking about watching that guy's lifeless body rise to the top of the.
No, there is, but I think when I think of 50s movies, I think of them kind of turning away from those types of scenes. Do you know what I mean? Sort of like
and
being
they do
more
usually.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they'll have a woman scream and turn her head, and the men will look all grim, like don't let the children see it, and it's all off camera.
Yeah,
but this one, it wasn't afraid to like show the lantern exploding, and then you see the guy wrapped in bandages, like quietly sobbing because his face was burned off, and it's just like holy hell. And the kills felt like kills here. That's pretty impressive.
And the other guy crying
helps that this was 1953, so it's early 50s, because like in the 40s you have all those grim noir movies and everything, and so it's really not until like you get to around 1953 that you have all the moral panic around comics and all that stuff. So I think this is probably early enough that hasn't really started yet. Things can be a little more shaky, but
I said it before and I'll say it again. Moral Puritans ruin everything.
Well, yeah.
But they come in cycles. They come in cycles. So
exactly.
But that probably is. I mean, I don't know. Again, I was saying before we did this, I'm not going to be the person that's going to be able to really give this like a context in terms of its film history positioning, but it was surprisingly grim at times and surprisingly frank in the way that that guy's dead, and also like I would say when Mark dies it's particularly striking because he's got the most life in him as a character. He's a fiery personality. And you think, well, this guy's gonna survive. Do you know, this guy is gonna be
seems like a
because he's almost like he's almost the bad guy in the movie. Do you know what I mean?
He is. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's I'm of two minds of it. On the one hand, I was surprised he died at that point, but on the other hand, I was like, this is the guy who the monster is definitely gonna kill.
Hey, you got to kill the heel.
He's the Paul Reiser character from Aliens. He's all of that. You know.
But less
slimy.
Yeah, he's less slimy. His villainy is much more upfront and manly than the Paul Reiser character. They definitely occupy the same space, but they're like at opposite ends of the spectrum of that space.
Exactly.
That's a great way of characterizing that.
But I just think the Mark character is very captivating. I don't know why. I just find that character really works in the movie. You don't like him, but you also, I don't know. Again, in the end, it's clear that his course of action would have been the more practical one by the end. You know, not that it was morally good, just that less people would have died if they had just shot the thing. You know what I mean? That if they
and ultimately he was right. They shoot the thing. It's dead. They didn't even get it. If they'd listened to him in the first place and went gung-ho, they'd have a fresh creature corpse and less people would be dead.
Technically, it's a little bit ambiguous, but it does get shot and it does drift away like it's dead, but they leave it enough that there's room for the thing to come back. But they basically end up doing what he suggested, minus being able to bring it back as a specimen and prove that they, have, that there was this missing link in the evolution of sea creatures to mammals. You know what I mean? So, or to land mammals. So, I don't know, but I did like the character, and also I feel like if you imagine this story without him, it's just so much more dull.
There isn't a story without him.
Yeah, you need that guy.
But to make my comparison, I made the Paul Reiser one. I should go the other direction. Who he's influenced by Carl Denham from King Kong. That's who he is.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So that's the archetype.
And also, I some of the 50s stylings really like. I like the smoking, and that one guy has, I think, like one guy was smoking a cigarette and one guy had a cigar and one guy had a pipe. It was like literally like that. Like there were just like three different types of smoking going on, in the screen. There's something charming about that. And I also like, this is a period where when they're talking about science, they're so optimistic. They are so optimistic. And I don't know, when you live in a much more pessimistic age, it's enjoyable to, again,
these people were happy at their jobs. What the hell's that like?
Well, not just that, but just this idea of
it's not World War II anymore. It's like everything makes them happy.
Well, just up through, there's like this period.
Germans are shooting at me. What a great day!
There's this period in science up to the moon landing where you have this really optimistic science fiction, and it sometimes goes in dark directions, but you just have this optimism about the science that's very appealing, and it's just not something that is culturally present anymore. So it's sort of enjoyable to see that. I like a lot of, like, me and Ab have had this conversation. I like a lot of the 50s, Asimov and Clarke novels. I just find I just like that period of science fiction. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on this one? I think we've gone down every topic.
The lagoon is surprisingly deep. I will say that about it, and I don't mean that like physically, although that too. But like, there's a lot of this movie that I didn't think I was gonna have to unpack. Like the solitude of the creature. There's clearly more than one, because there's a dead one and a live one. But where are the other ones? Like, is there a clutch of eggs somewhere? This is the last of its kind? Are we watching a tragedy? There's a lot of little moments like that in this movie that they leave you thinking about it. And that's sort of rare for a hokey 50s movie.
The movie that I was confused with, like I said, I thought I saw this movie, and for some reason I thought this movie began with some accident happening and like his mate being killed at the beginning of the movie, which kind of set the whole thing up. But I don't know what movie I'm thinking of.
There are two sequels to the movie. It's possible it was one of those.
I've seen what is it, Return of the Creature, the one that's at SeaWorld or whatever. That's the one I've seen.
That's Jaws 3D, I thought.
That's where Jaws 3D is a remake of Return of the Creature. So.
Oh my god. Was it Horror of Party Beach? Maybe that kind of had similar creatures.
But which one?
Horror of Party Beach, one of my favorite Mystery Science
not
Theater 3000 episodes.
That. I have not seen that, unfortunately. In fact, I saw Return of the Creature was a Mystery Science Theater episode, so that's where I saw that.
I've never saw that one.
Yeah, Jaws 3D is a unique kind of bad movie.
It is a very unique kind of bad movie.
Yeah. That is
yeah, we may have to do a bad movie month at some point. Be like, we're subjecting you all to these horrible films.
Okay, but I don't know if I can do Jaws 3D again. Like that's.
I'd rather do it than Jaws: The Revenge. If those are the choices.
Jaws: The Revenge isn't even a movie that's enjoyable to talk about as being a bad movie. It's so bad that it's just
nothing.
Yeah,
it would just be us listing the things we could have done aside from waste our time on this movie.
We can talk about Michael Caine's house. That's what we can.
Well, like Jaws 3D is a bad movie, but it's not boring. But Jaws: The Revenge is a boring fucking movie.
Yeah,
like there's nothing redeeming about it, even from like a cynical, we're watching this ironically type of level of enjoyment. You can't watch that movie ironically. You can only watch it as a bad movie. Yeah, we should do that. I agree. I wouldn't mind doing some bad movies. I could see that we might have to debate what would qualify, what wouldn't, but I think it would be.
We've already had that
debate. Yeah. I don't know. What are your final thoughts on this movie? Actually, Adam, you had made that. You had mentioned something about the filmography of the guy who played Mark.
Yeah, that was fun.
But let me stall for me, and I'll find it.
Okay. So final thoughts for me. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this even a little bit, and I actually wound up enjoying it a lot. As I said, I watched it with my girlfriend, and I don't think she really kind of got into it. And I think that I agree with you, Brendan, that we were both right in that this is kind of a movie that is a product of its time, and it has kind of tired cliches and tropes, and it makes it a little predictable, and it's a little culturally saturated, and it's a little PG because it's in the 1950s. And all that is true about the movie. But also, there is that surprising depth to it. It asks fascinating philosophical questions, and it raises interesting situations, and it asks you as an audience member. It's smarter to ask you and to leave the judgment to you about what should be done in these scenarios. Should they have tried to capture it? Was that hubris on their part? Was killing it the safer option? Should they have left? There's a lot of questions like that. Like, how smart is the creature? What does it actually want? Like, its relationship with our female lead is very different than with all the other males. Like, is it lonesome? Does it understand that there's a gender binary with these creatures? It's part fish. Does that matter to it? Like, there's all these wonderful unexplored questions that are raised and handed to you as an audience member to contemplate, and it leaves the movie with a peculiar resonance that's actually quite unique and good.
I feel like the answer to that question, by the way, is that this is from a period where it was just assumed monsters were attracted to human females for whatever reason.
We call that period the present.
Yeah.
And it's always true.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's King Kong, but he likes blondes. It's like that kind of a thing.
He's clearly a gentleman then.
Yeah. So, but did you find it, Adam, or are we going to have to?
Yeah. It's to bring our audience up to speed. The Richard Denning, the guy that played Mark. I was just going through his filmography, getting ready for this podcast, and he has just the most Troy McClure movie titles in his credit. Like, just Give Me a Sailor, Touchdown Army. Say it in French.
Say it in French.
Say it in French.
And I sailed Tahiti with an all-girl crew. And,
that's very Troy McClure.
That it really is. Target Hong Kong.
You may remember me from such propaganda campaigns as Target Hong Kong, and I sailed Tahiti with a crew full of women.
Yeah, and insurance investigator. That sounds like a good. Oh, seven were. I've actually seen Seven Were Saved. That's it's about a bunch of people in a plane crash, but only 7 people are going to survive the movie, which gives you something to look forward to.
I'm looking forward to everyone else dying in this movie.
Yeah, which 7 will make it. But oh man. But yeah, it's just amazing filmography. I recommend you look it up yourself because there's many more good titles in there.
Yeah. I don't know. This movie, like I said, I think it's a good movie. It's definitely a product of its time, like Joel was saying, but it is a classic, and I think it holds up. I do feel like you have to meet it halfway. It's that kind of film, not because of anything particularly an issue with the movie, just because of the period it was made in, and it's so of its time that you
yeah.
And again, there are movies that are of its time, but for whatever reason they don't. This one just kind of has some things that I feel like you do have to you do have to meet it halfway. But the design
it is a particularly well made 50s monster movie.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna meet a 50s monster movie halfway, this is a good one to pick.
Yeah, and like I said, once you immerse in it, it's fine. It's just there are these like superficial qualities the movie has that I could see some people not being able to get past when they're watching.
No,
you know what I mean?
There's plenty of people I would never recommend this to.
But it's a fun horror film. I think it's effective horror for the style of horror it is. It's a classic monster design, and it does, with very simple technique, build genuine suspense and dread, which I think is, like the whole scene where just because there are some trees in front of the boat, it builds a little dam that builds up this whole scenario, and to some people that might look silly. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just like a boat and some twigs. But I think it was very effective, and I think it's kind of like the Hitchcock with the Hershey's syrup. Do you know what I mean? It's like a simple technique, but done right, it works and it's solid. So, Adam, how about you before we depart?
Oh, my final thoughts.
What are your final thoughts?
Oh, man.
What are your terminal thoughts?
Always make me have to do the big thing at the end when I'm super tired. But yeah, I basically, as I said earlier, if you do want to watch a 50s monster movie, basically you can't go wrong with picking this one if you're in the mood for that kind of thing. A lot of people aren't going to be able to get past the 50s, but I think this movie has genuinely well directed action scenes, especially considering filming underwater in 1953. It's hard filming underwater now. It's like the technical achievement of this movie is pretty impressive.
And they are beautiful underwater sequences. The underwater sequences are very beautiful. And scary. There is something scary about the way those scenes were shot. They're kind of haunting. There's these extended sequences where the creature is swimming under the woman, and it's almost it's sort of reminiscent of Jaws in that way. Do you know what I mean? It's a like
it's similar to the cover of the book Jaws. The movie poster.
That's what I was thinking actually. Is that iconic image? And it gets it. In a lot of ways, I feel like Jaws kind of continues some of the horror themes that this movie is dipping its toes into, where there's this fear of what's under the water.
Yeah, to add to my final thoughts too, I think now you brought that scene up. It's interesting the way the creature acts during that scene, because it's nervous almost. For a while it retreats and goes and hides behind that rock to watch, right? It just adds so much personality to that creature in that one scene. Because I mean, it serves the purpose of establishing the creature's interested in her, that it's menacing and so on, but there's more complexity to the way it behaves that I think a lot of movies wouldn't have bothered with.
Yeah, it was, and I think I think they had one actor for the underwater scenes and one for the above ground scenes. But it's good that they were consistent like that. And they didn't have like 4 people doing different scenes with the monster, so that it wasn't it was always kind of moving consistently. Do you know what I mean? And so again, I don't know, where did everybody see this? I saw it on Prime. I had to rent it, and the quality was. What would you say about the quality of that? Would you say did you feel that could have been better? Or do you think it was good for?
I think it was well preserved. I mean, I saw it on the projector, so like we actually saw it like letterbox style, and it looked pretty cool for that. Okay,
what's the projector? Now I'm confused.
Well, my girlfriend bought a projector, and we just project movies onto our wall now.
Not like an actual film projector, like some kind of device that projects.
Yeah. I mean, it's It's just hooked up to the phone, and it's just like streaming through the phone, but it's projecting the images just the same way that a film projector would.
Okay.
And it's awesome. We play Breath of the Wild on it all the time, so that's pretty rad.
Okay.
Link is the size of my entire fist.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point being, it was beautiful in that presentation.
Yeah, I watched it on Criterion Channel because they did all the Universal things for classic monsters for Halloween, so that was still up. So and that was good. Obviously, Criterion always has pretty good quality shots. So.
I have a feeling yours probably looked better than the version we saw, but I could be wrong.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Because I wanted to see it on
Really
Criterion, but I didn't have the Criterion service, so I was like, well, I'll just watch it on Prime. But I was a little bit sad when once I started and thought maybe the Criterion collection's better, but I don't know. So,
Yeah, but there's it's on another service too. What was the other service it was on?
I know you had mentioned it to us before we watched it. It was Criterion Collection and I can't remember. But again,
it's on Peacock too.
Oh, Peacock. Okay.
I think they probably have a good one because NBC owns Universal. So if anyone owns a good copy of Black Lagoon, NBC should own one.
Peacock is the NBC channel.
It's the NBC streaming service.
I feel this is besides the point, but I when the companies change their name like that, I can't just go along with the whole, you know what I mean? I gotta
Peacock. It's their logo.
It's just NBC. They're NBC. It's like when Kentucky Fried Chicken became KFC. It took me a very, very long time to say KFC. Do you know? It's just like, I don't know. I feel like there's like you're gonna say KFC from now on, even though you've been saying Kentucky Fried Chicken all these years. But so
yeah. As part of that trend where they're like, no company should have a name that means anything because then you're limited to selling chicken.
Is that what it was?
It was a big thing in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, my father works for NCR, which used to be National Cash Register, but we don't want to be associated with the cash register.
But now you're associated with nothing. Now you're associated with nothing. So what do you like that? That's the
IBM used to be International Business Machines, and they were nope, our name's actually IBM now.
Okay, that's
it's the artist formerly known as International Business Machines now. That's because a symbol can mean anything.
Prince could do whatever he wants, and I feel like that was actually just trolling when he did that. But he
was trolling his
what I loved about that is people don't realize there was a period of time where the news didn't know what to call him, and it took them a while to figure out the artist formerly known as Prince, and it was that process that was so enjoyable about watching it unfold. Because I remember them sort of struggling with it, and it took a little bit before it became this consistent thing where they're just like the artist formerly known as
creature formerly known as from the Black Lagoon.
But
Horror Express, everybody.
Yeah, so we'll leave it at that, and we'll be back on next time with some more creature goodness. I don't know what movie we're going to do, but we're going to do
maybe some more discussions of corporate names too.
Yeah. Oh, we got to get those corporate names.
We got
I had so much more lined up on that one too, but it got derailed as we, got into the weeds there.
Joel cut us short and brought us back to our senses and ruined everything.
I did.
I think people come here for the corporate acronym discussion.
That's what our brand's associated with. Because we're not Horror Express anymore. We're HE Express.
There we go. Yeah.
HE.
That could be fun too.
I like the redundant.
Go do your homework.
That makes it work.
All right, so we'll head out, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.